Let's shift our focus now to the issue playing out in Kaduna State, where earlier in the week the Nigerian Labour Congress were very present there. They had declared a 5-day warning strike. The strike was only on, I think, day 3 when it was suspended because Dr. Ngige had to call for a meeting between the NLC and the Kaduna State government. Remember that the Kaduna State governor had declared the NLC president wanted such such audacity, I must say. But Sunday, let's begin with you. As a matter of fact, there was even a picture that circulated online of El-Rufai and Dino Melaye protesting many years ago. But what are your thoughts indeed? Because now the strike has been suspended. You know, are things better? What do we know?
Well, we watch and to see what comes out of it from the part of the federal government that called for a halt, a suspension of the strike, and calling for negotiation. But besides that, I think the governor of Kaduna State, he mismanaged the situation. He mismanaged the strike, he mismanaged the workers' protests, thugs invaded the protest venue, even went to where they were even having their meetings. So that was rather, it was barbaric and a backward action from a public office holder in the 21st century. We must be very categorical on this. I don't have doubts that the governor of Kaduna is a good administrator, you know, but again, when you are taking a public decision that is against the welfare of the people, and the people are putting demand on the government, you have a way of responding to the demands and not to worsen the situation on ground. Nothing would have really made him be a lesser governor if he had allowed the people to express, you know, their anger within the 5 days. They were not confrontational. They just assembled, you know, at that never roundabout, expressing, you know, their feelings. And that is the way they could communicate to the governor and say, this is our own demand. And I believe that the state chapter have been having meetings. They must have been having consultations before they got to that point. If they didn't, then you can blame labor, the organized labor. But they ought to have done that, and which many of us believe they did to get to that point. And you now went to the level of, okay, you find a way to disrupt, you even went as far as declaring them wanted.
No, but we can't hold the Kaduna State governor responsible for the thugs invading the... I mean, he wasn't responsible for that.
You know, let me tell you, if you look at the evolution of trade unionism, before they formed the trade union, the bourgeois has a violent behavior towards workers each time they are making demands or they are negotiating. In the past, what they do is to get because they have control of the army, the police, could they set against the people, the workers, and it turned violence. Workers respond, throwing stone before they now began to think of going to trade union, you know, to get themselves organized and have leaders who cannot negotiate. The state, Kaduna State, has returned the country to that old stage, old stone age, to the stone age, you know, if you must say, because this is what, and unfortunately, you now see that the police, which ought to have been, you know, maybe answerable to the state authority on the other side, was protecting the workers. And you now see merchants of violence from nowhere coming for disruptions. Are you going to tell me that the NLC chairman is the one who called out talks?
All right, we do not have those answers. Ambrose, we'll come to you, Victor. But Ambrose, talk to us from your perspective. How would you respond or react to what Sunday has just said here about what played out in Kaduna State?
Well, the Kaduna imbroglio emanates from somebody as El-Rufai, Malam El-Rufai, who enjoy the freedom of protests. I will remember during the first subsidy protests in 2012, he was among those who were protesting with a quarter of them now in APC against the removal of fuel subsidy. and he had unfettered freedom. People were even playing music and the rest. And good enough, the internet does not lie. So people have dug up his statements, his tweets, and other responses he gave during that period, where he was advocating that workers have a right to protest, and no government in a democratic setting should stop them. Fast forward to 9 years later, the same El-Rufai has made a complete turnaround, a U-turn, and is now antagonistic towards Labour and telling that Labour does not even have the right to protest, and has the temerity, the effrontery, and the bravado, will I say? I would rather say even executive rascality to declare the national president of the Nigeria Labour Congress wanted. Is he a judge? Is he where did he derive his power from to declare a national president of NLC wanted? Is he the DSS? Is it the police? Who is he to declare them wanted? That is being very draconian, and he has demonstrated a penchant for totalitarianism and despotism over the years, and this cannot be allowed to stand in a democracy. So I give kudos to Labour. I've given the Labour a lot of knocks in the recent past in my analysis, but this time around I give them kudos for standing up to this kind of despot behavior in our country. It should not be allowed to stand, because this is a democracy, and people who cannot conform to the rules of democracy should maybe go and create their own kingdom somewhere where they can remove despotic monarchs, where nobody can question them. In democracy, you are answerable to the people. Even when we had military regime, Labour was allowed to even go around. Remember the time of Pascal Baffa of them and all those Franco Ori them, who stood up and fought the military junta. So if they can stand up and fight the military junta, joining the rest of Nigeria standing on the right to oust a military despot, then people like El-Rufai should remember history and know that they are not bigger than the Nigerian masses. He is not bigger than the NLC. What I've expected him to have done is that, first of all, I need to state it emphatically, that the governor of a state is the chief executive and has the prerogative to actually downsize his workforce if the need arises. But how it goes, or he or she goes about it, is the problem. And the problem in Kaduna is how Malam El-Rufai went about the retrenching or sacking of workers. Did he engage the labor? Did they agree on terms? What is their exit package? What is their retirement benefit? How has it placed them in terms of second level financing, in terms of palliatives, in terms of other things that will make them, be able to cushion the effect of their living war? That was not those things.
All right, Ambrose, we'll be checking with you very, very shortly. Victor, now that the FG has stepped into this, is this the end? Because in time past, we know how when FG steps in, you say let's set up committees and all of that, and then the matter will always just die or have a natural death. Is this the end?
It is not the end, and it will never be the end. We are talking about people's means of livelihood taken from them.
About 4,000 workers.
Yes, and that's not the first time he has done that.
2016, I think about
between 2015 and today, a period of six years, he has retrenched about 60,000 workers. Who does that? And this is to show to you that this APC government has no direction. Because I can remember in those days when we had UPN and MPN. At the state level, they carry out the agenda of the policy of the federal government at the state level, and that was why at the state level, there's all the states that were controlled by UPN at that time gave those states that UPN control free education. Now, at the federal level, we are told that the federal government was going to create 1 million jobs every year. That was what they told us when they were campaigning. Now that they are there, how come a government that is serving under a party that promised to create 1 million jobs 1 million jobs every year, is now sacking people. That is strange. Then recently the president said that he was going to move about 100 million people from poverty into El Dorado. So if at the federal level the president is saying that he was going to move about 100 million Nigeria from poverty, how come that at the state level a governor under the same party is retrenching people? Do you make people rich by retrenching people? The answer is no. When people are jobless, can they become rich? And again, what alternative has he provided for those people that he has sacked? Were they paid their severance package? We did not hear anything about that. So it shows that they are disorganized. It's a disorganized political party, because there is no way the federal government will be telling us that it's going to remove some people from poverty, and at the state level, a state governor is restricting people. What is the connection there? People cannot become
just like what Ambrose has said. If we have workers on ground who, I mean, we know how some government parastatals are. Some of them is mainly what they don't look. Most of them are not really doing anything.
Were they employed yesterday? The question we should answer ourselves: these people that El-Rufai is retrenching today, were they employed yesterday? And the another question is that what revenue were used to sustain them before he came on board? And has the revenue depreciated?
All right, so Sunday,
these are the questions we must ask ourselves.
The governor, of course, as Ambrose has said, has the prerogative to sack workers if he feels that he needs to slash down the cost of governance, if he has to fix the state and all of that.
Yeah, they may be such powers, but there are also guidelines. So it's not something that is done with impunity. It has
so due process is the key word here. Yeah, due process wasn't followed.
Exactly, it has to be negotiated. You have to really discuss it and agree to it. There must be consensus before such action is being taken.